Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of Mining for Meaning. Mining for Meaning is a episodic program I'm trying to start here that deals with different aspects of life, and it can be anything from literary topics to history to psychology. The first two episodes are going to deal with personality, what makes us who we are. And the first episode itself, this one, um, deals with relational psychology. And in relational psychology, what happens is I will be giving some prompts, and the idea is as you follow along, you will write down your first response without thinking about it, and at the end of each section, we'll go back and look over your responses, and it will tell you something about yourself. Um, some people call it a metaphorical journey. It's an interesting process. At the same time, to go with the mining section, um, we will be playing Minecraft while we do this. In fact, there it is. Um, and so, what I have for you for this first episode are 6 different stories, 6 different potential prompts. And for each one, um, think about your first response. What does it mean to you? What do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? Um, and write down, preferably, obviously in your own homes, um, your first responses, and we'll see what that can tell you about yourself. This will make more sense, I think, if we just get started. So, take a minute, and you might hear some of my teacher voice here. Get out a piece of paper, something to write with, open a Google Doc, a Word document, whatever works for you. Something where you can write down your answers, that way you remember what you're saying. And we'll see if we can find out something about your own personalities as we go. It's kind of fun. People tend to enjoy doing this. I should point out, I have no medical background, right? I'm not in psychology. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an English teacher. So while this is a prompt I work with in my classroom, it's obviously not a professional review, right? It's not going to count as some kind of guide for real life, but it does work, if that's the right word for it. Any case, hopefully by now you have something to write with. If not, well, you can always pause this and go from there. So for your first relational psychology journey, your first metaphorical journey, you're riding a camel in the desert. You feel extremely exhausted. You've been going for a very long time. What do you say to your camel that has been with you for this whole journey? For this, just one sentence is enough. Like, write down, as you've been traveling, I've been going for a long time, what do you say to your camel that's been with you this whole time you've been traveling? Take a second, write it down. While you're doing that, yes, I am using frog lights instead of torches. If you haven't seen it, I have a frog light farm. Check it out, it's awesome. Okay. Should have your first response done. Now, the issue is, as you've been traveling, you discover that you're extremely thirsty. Luckily, however, you see an oasis. When you get there, you are surprised to discover that somebody has gotten there before you. Who is there at the oasis when you arrive? It's somebody you know. So whoever the first person is that you think of, somebody who's waiting at the oasis when you get to it. Perfect. So you leave the oasis. You've quenched your thirst. And finally, your destination is in sight. The city you've been trying to get to this whole time. You're not there yet, but you can see it. Now that you can see your destination, how do you feel? Alright, and then the last one for this one. Um, now that you've arrived at your destination, you've finally gotten out of the desert, you have to give your camel away to somebody else so that they can now take a journey of their own. Who are you giving the camel to? Again, it's somebody you know, not the same person that you met at the oasis probably, but whoever your first thought is, first name to come to mind. That should be more than enough time. This one's a fairly quick and easy one, right? It's only 4 stages. So, here's what this means for you. This whole relational psychology trip symbolizes your journey towards some personal independence. More specifically, it deals with how you personally would deal with a breakup scenario. It's the thoughts that go through your mind. It's the emotions you have while you are breaking up with somebody or being broken up with. So, stage 1. The words you spoke to the camel reflect what you would say to yourself once you realize that love is lost. Once you realize that there's no point in continuing down this particular relationship. The second stage, the person you see at the oasis who got there before you did, is somebody who's been there for you in the past and will be there for you again in the future. No matter what your problem is, you feel like you can go to them. When you see your destination in sight, the emotion you feel is the feelings you have about getting over a lost love. It's your true feelings about this breakup. And then finally, the person you give the camel to is someone you have a personal resentment towards, or somebody you're jealous of. Maybe it's the person you blame for the end of your relationship, or the end of your last relationship, whichever it may be. I know this is not a 100% accurate test. However, I have found with my students that about 90% of them have this realization that, oh my god, that is exactly what I think or feel or go through anytime I break up with somebody. So, now that you have an idea of how this works, we're going to go through 5 more. Just one at a time, obviously, but slowly. There's no real rush. And the same process goes through. None of these, by the way, have anything to do with each other, even though some of them will have the same general setting. Most relational psychology tests deal with either the wilderness or the desert. And so each time we're switching from one to the next, go ahead and take a breath, hit pause, get a fresh piece of paper, whatever you need to do to clear your mind and start over. Right? Each one of these is supposed to tell you something different about yourself, but because of the similar themes, some of the similar settings, it can be a little difficult to forget what you did previously. But do your best. Forget all about this desert and the camel, because we are going to the wilderness. For the second one, You are standing on top of a hill overlooking a valley. What I want you to do, and this will take a couple sentences, so I'll give you a minute or so, describe what you see when you're looking down into this valley from the top of the hill. What does it look like? Alright. Sorry. You got a good description of your valley? Well, now it's time to head down into it. So you descend into the valley, and when you get to the bottom, you find yourself at a road. Just like you did for the valley, describe the road. What kind of road have you come across? For as an example, like, is it a dirt road? Is it curvy? Is it and windy? Is it unkept? Is it a freeway? You know, what kind of road have you found down in this valley? And just like before, you know, put whatever your first thoughts are. The more time you take to think about it, the less accurate it's going to be. So you descend into the valley, you come across a road. What's the road look like? Since you're there anyway, you decide to go ahead and travel along the road. And as you're traveling, an animal shows up and walks by your side. Actually, forget the side. An animal shows up. Where is it in relation to you, and what is it? What's the animal, and where is it in relation to you? Now, is it standing at your side, like I said a second ago, or is it behind you, in front of you, riding on top of you, or you riding on top of it? Either way, while you're walking on the road, an animal shows up. What is the animal? Where is it in relation to you? I should probably point out, there are no wrong answers to any of this, if you haven't figured that out. As you and the animal are traveling along the road, you come across some kind of obstacle. What is the obstacle in your path, and how do you get around it? Or how do you overcome it? So as you're traveling, something gets in your way. How do you interact with that obstacle? How do you get through it, around it, over it, whatever it is? And then the last one for this one, you come across a body of water. What is the water, and how do you interact with the water? And a body of water can be anything from a puddle to an ocean, from a stream to a river. Doesn't matter. You come across a body of water. What is the water? How do you interact with it? So for this journey, for this relational psychology quiz, you started on a hill overlooking a valley and described the valley. When you got into the valley, you found a road and you described the road. Along the road, an animal joined you. What is the animal and where is it standing in relation to you? you and the animal companion come across a obstacle. How do you interact with that obstacle? What is it? And then at the end, you come across a body of water. What is the water? How do you interact with it? And when I say there are no wrong answers, I literally had a student say that when they got to the water, even though this is supposed to be a silent activity, they yelled out, "I piss in it." So, really, there are no wrong answers. Although that one was quite amusing once we get to this next section. So, what you wind up with, how this relates to you. Your view of the valley is your overall outlook on life. So if you describe the valley as wild and untamed, or covered in like blackberry bushes, you view the world as something kind of dangerous and unknown. If the valley is well trimmed, like next to a freeway, and everything is cut down, you see life as more organized. If that makes sense. The road itself that you found when you got into the valley is how you view life's journey itself. So no matter what your opinion is of life, your outlook on life, the road is your trip through it. Right? So the valley could be very well kept, but the road could be barely there, a dirt path. And so you view life as an adventure that you have to fight through to get what you want. If the road is a freeway cutting through the valley, then you see life, the path of life is fairly straightforward and easy path to get down. Things like that. And each one is interpretational. You can kind of figure out, based on your road, what it looks like for you, without me trying to describe every single type of road. However, on that road, when you are joined by the animal companion, that animal companion represents what you think is an ideal significant other, an ideal mate, an ideal person to spend your life with. And whatever characteristics that animal is associated with are the characteristics that you prefer in a person. As examples, and there's entire books written on the symbology of animals, so obviously I'm not going to go through every animal, but there are some classic examples, right? So a dog or a wolf tends to represent strength and loyalty in a partner. The dog is a man's best friend kind of thing. If your animal companion is a cat, then you prefer somebody who's relatively independent of you and comes to get attention only when they want it. You can look up the symbology of animals, find what you want. I only know a few off the top of my head, like cats, dogs. A fox means you like somebody who's clever and a little sly, and intelligent, but also not entirely trustworthy. I think you get the idea. Where that animal is in relation to you is where you prefer your partner to be. So if you chose to have the animal walking behind you, you prefer a partner who follows you, but lets you take charge. If you have the animal in front of you, you prefer to be the one who follows along in the relationship. If they're next to you, you work together. If you're riding on them, you want them to do all of the work. If they're riding on you, you want to carry your partner through life, right? Where the animal is how you view ideal relationship when it comes to how you and your partner interact. no matter what the animal is. The obstacle you come across, this one actually should be pretty obvious. It's how you view all of your life's obstacles. So if there was a boulder, say, blocking your path, you view life's obstacles as something relatively difficult to get through. If your obstacle was a fissure in the road, then all you worry about is getting over small gaps or whatever it might be. But your obstacle, how big it is, how much of the road is blocking, is how you view all of life's obstacles. How you get past the obstacle is how you get past most of your regular life's obstacles. Do you climb over them? Do you go around them? Do you blow them up in some cases if it's like a boulder blocking your path? Like, it's how you tend to react to problems that arise in your life. And finally, the water itself, the body of water you come across, is how you view intimacy. So, if you chose a puddle, your view of intimacy is that it's kind of shallow. If you chose an ocean for your body of water, then you view intimacy as something vast and mysterious and beautiful. If you chose a whitewater river, then you find it dangerous and exciting, right? Whatever kind of water you found is how you typically view being intimate with somebody. And that does not necessarily mean sex. It just means sharing your feelings with them, actually being with them. It's how you view that. And then finally, how you interact with the water is how you typically interact with intimacy in general, which is why it was amusing when the student yelled out, "I pee in it." He had some trouble, as he would say, with the ladies. And that might be part of why. In any case, the first journey takes you through a breakup scenario. The second journey talks about how you view relationships in general, your outlook on life, and most of these relational psychology quizzes all deal with similar concepts, right? How do you focus on your life's journey? And so, what we're going to get to are a couple that I have not run with my students simply because I hadn't found them over the last couple of years. I just recently discovered some more. And so I'm not as familiar with these, but I think they're worth going through. And so the first one of what is, for me, the new ones, we're going to look at is something called the Oasis test. Now, the Oasis test has nothing to do with the previous desert journey. Like I said, all of these are all by themselves. They're all independent. So don't let that other one color your thoughts on this. It is also a little random, right? The last two kind of told a story. A couple of these others, the one we do, I think, right after this, in particular, does not tell a story so much as just describe imagery. This one is just a bunch of random questions. Not gonna lie, but it does involve the desert. So here we go. New piece of paper, fresh your mind. Keep them up, do whatever you need to do. Clear your head, clear your thoughts. Forget all the journeys we've taken so far. This is something brand new. You are walking down a road and you see a box. You walk up to the box and look inside it. What does the box contain? You find a random box, you open it up. What's inside? Probably asking, what does this have to do with an oasis? Don't worry, we'll get there. Alright, so this is random questions. This is what I mean. Before continuing, picture yourself in the position of being able to retire right now. How would you spend the rest of your life? If you could retire right now, how would you spend the rest of your life? By the way, when they say it could retire, it means you wouldn't have to worry as much about money, right? You'd be financially set. You can do whatever you want to do. If you could retire right now, how would you spend the rest of your life? Alright, in the meantime, you've been wandering around a desert all day, completely lost. In the distance, you can see a village. However, you can also see in the opposite direction a deserted oasis filled with water. So there's nobody there. The oasis has a bunch of plants, it has food, and the like. Which do you go to? Do you go to the town after wandering the desert completely lost for a while? Or do you go to the oasis that has the water? You don't need to worry about why. Just which one do you go to? The oasis or the town? And going back to a bit of a random question. What would you do if you suddenly lost everything? Doesn't matter how you lost it. Theft, fire, earthquake, whatever. What would you do if you suddenly lost everything? Okay, the next one. Tomorrow is Sunday. What do you plan to do? What are you going to do on Sunday? If you found yourself in a tight spot, where would you go for help? Who would you ask? Does not have to be a actual person. You can say nobody if your first response is nobody. But if you found yourself in a tight spot, where would you go for help? Who would you ask? If you could pick one age to be for the rest of your life, what would that age be? Pick any age and stop aging. What age would you pick to be for the rest of your life? Only 2 left in this one. Speaking of the rest of your life, if you were told you only had 24 hours to live, how would you spend that time? And then your last one. If your home was on fire and you could save only one thing, what would you save? Okay, so I warned you at the beginning, this one does not tell a story so much as ask a bunch of questions that don't seem to have a relation to each other until we get to this part, right? Get to the meanings. Why do we do this? So, what you found in the box, at the very beginning when you were wandering down the road, what you see in the box is a representation of how you see your own luck. It's how lucky you think you are. For instance, if you opened that box and there was nothing inside, you don't believe you're lucky at all. You believe you have no luck. If you opened up that box and you found $1 million, you think you're very lucky. When asked, where would you retire, the place you would choose to, or what would you do if you could retire right now, the place you choose to retire, if it is where you live now, you're very content with your life. You like where you're at. You're content. You're happy. If you chose some faraway place that you've never been to or that you just like because it's far away, you're not content with how your life is going. You have big dreams about what you want to do, where you want to go. By the way, there's nothing wrong with being content with your life. That was never a bad thing. If you could not decide on a place to retire to, what that typically means is you don't have many loyalties or attachments. There's nothing tying you down. And so you have the freedom to go anywhere. It can be incapacitating. It can make you freeze if you don't know what you want to do or where you want to go, and you have nothing to tie yourself down. That can be incapacitating. So it's fine. You don't have to have that kind of answer. Anyway, when asked what would you do if you suddenly lost everything, if you decided to make a fresh start, you're the kind of person who takes responsibility for your actions. If you decided to break down and cry and wait for help, you're the kind of person who wants others to help you pull you out of tight spots, to help you when you're struggling. What you plan to do on Sunday reflects your financial status. So Sundays are typically days where people have their time off, they're able to hang out, do whatever they want to do. So if you stayed home and relaxed, you typically don't spend a lot of money. If you went out and partied, you're the kind of person who spends a lot of money. How'd I hit that? If you went out and did a physical activity like jogging or something, apparently that means you like to save money because you're doing something physical instead of going shopping. And of course, if you said you're heading out to go shopping, well, it means you spend a lot of money. You might need to start thinking about how to save money in the future. When things went wrong, if you're the kind of person who fixed it yourself, you're living a self-assured life. If you turn to friends or family, you're a little bit insecure. If you sought legal advice, then there's concerning, apparently, according to the website, that's your first instinct. Being in a tight spot, your first idea is to start suing. We might need to examine some things, apparently. The age you chose to live the rest of your life represents the time you either were the most happy or when you think you will be the most happy. So if you chose to live out the rest of your life as a 10-year-old, you were happiest when you were 10 and everything's gone downhill from there. If you chose 18, maybe you enjoyed the freedom of being considered an adult. even though, let's be honest, 18 just means you're old enough to be an adult, but too young for anybody to take you seriously. 18 used to mean a lot more, I think, than it does anymore. But whatever age you picked, and if you picked an age where you have not reached, you think you'll be happiest when you get to that age. If you picked 80, I don't know if anybody's ever going to pick 80, but if you picked 80, you think you'll be happiest when you're old, when you retire. That'd be a very shocking age to pick, I think. I'm not judging. When told you had 24 hours left to live, if you chose to spend that time with family, you're likely very sentimental. You love your family, you love people around you, and you're afraid to lose them. If you threw a party, it means you're kind of at peace with the idea that you're going to die. You've accepted that fact. Because typically people don't party while they're still struggling. And finally, when saving something from the house, if you chose something like a photo album, it again means you're pretty sentimental. If you picked something like clothing is the one thing you'd save, or it means you're kind of cautious. If you pick something expensive like jewelry, it means you're kind of materialistic. If you grabbed a passport on your way out the door, or your computer, it probably means that you're practical and you think about the future, what you're going to need before tragedy strikes. So I'm not a fan of that one, I don't think. It's a little... it's not convoluted per se, but just there's not a lot of structure to it. I like the ones that are full stories that you can work yourself through. However, they do reveal different parts of your personality, so there's no reason not to do them. Alright. 3 to go. And I think I'll do the other random one now, because the other two do go back to telling a story. So we'll do the other random one for now. And this one is very, very random. Like, even more so than this last one. If you can believe it. Even if you can't believe it. This one is called the Cube Test. C-U-B-E, the Cube Test. And it has 7 different questions, or 7 different prompts for you to work with. So, clear your head, new scenario, new things being looked at. The Cube Test has, again, nothing to do with anything we've done so far, even if it's still taking place in a wilderness. For this one, to start you off, what you need to do is think about a field. Any kind of random field. How big is the field? What is it filled with? What do the surroundings look like? Come across a field. What's it look like? Here's where things get interesting. What I want you to think about next is a cube. Told you it's a cube test. Think of a cube. How big is the cube? What is it made out of? What is the surface like? In other words, is it rough, smooth, bumpy? What's the surface like? Covered in felt, whatever. What color is it? Where is it in the field? Is it on the ground? Is it floating? Is it half buried? Is the cube transparent? Can you see inside of it? So in the field, there's a cube. Where is it in the field? What's it look like? How big is it? There's a lot to this question, so take a couple minutes. No prompt. Everybody describe their cube? Hopefully. Now I want you to think about something possibly even stranger. I want you to think about a ladder. How long is the ladder? Where is it located in your field? Where is it in relation to your cube? Think about a ladder. Alright, now that you've got the field, the cube, and the ladder set, I want you to think about a horse. What color is the horse? What is the horse doing? Where is it in relation to your cube? You have a field, a cube, a ladder, and now a horse. Okay. Now I want you to think about some flowers. It's possible you've already done this, possibly you already put some in there. But think about some flowers in your field. Where are they? How many are they? Color doesn't matter as much. It does matter a little bit. But how many flowers are there in this field and where are they? Scattered everywhere, grouped together in one spot, etc. Think of the weather, or think about what the weather in the field is like. So just the field itself, what is the weather like there? And the last one for this one, once you got the weather for the field, um, is that you can see a storm. How far away is the storm from the cube? Is it a big storm? Is it just passing through? Is it only in the distance, or is it approaching fast? What is happening with this storm? Okay. That should get you through all of it. Like I said, this one was a little bit more confusing, a little bit more scattered. So here's how we interpret it. The field represents your mind. Its size is a representation of your knowledge of the world. It's also a representation of how vast your personality is. The condition of the field, what it is made out of, whether it's dry, grassy, well-trimmed, cultivated, whatever, is what your personality looks like at first glance. So when somebody first meets you, this is what they think of your personality. So if your field was dry and dead, people think you're pessimistic. If it was grassy and healthy, people think you're optimistic. If it's well-trimmed or cultivated, you're kind of cautious. You like to think things through before you actually commit to them. So it's right between pessimism and optimism. The cube should not be a surprise, but it represents you. The size of the cube represents your ego, how much you think about yourself. The bigger the cube, the more you think about yourself. Or the more you think of yourself, I guess is the better way to phrase that. The surface of the cube is the personality you want people to see. So if it's smooth, you want people to think you're smooth. If it's bumpy, rough, whatever, it's what you want people to see about you, whether it's true or not. It's the image you display to the world. The texture itself represents some of your other personality. The cube is an in-depth analysis of yourself. Colors all have symbolical meanings. Each color represents something different. And when it comes to personality, they have an entirely different set of meanings. So while in literature red means anger, in psychology red means that you're physically active and you enjoy sensory experiences, seeing, feeling, hearing. You like those kind of experiences other than besides just thinking. Yellow in literary circles again typically represents fear. In psychology, it means, and to some extent, you like your individuality. You like being social. You can look up the different meanings of the color of your cube if you want. I'm not going to go through all of them. If your cube was transparent, it means you like to let people know what you're thinking, what you're feeling. If your cube was solid, you prefer to hide your feelings from others. You don't want people to know what you're thinking or feeling. Um, if the cube's insides were hollow, you're kind of shallow. If it was filled with items, you're sentimental. Um, things like that all apply. A lot of it's kind of intuitive about how it works. Anyway, the ladder, which starts to throw people off once you get past the field and the cube, the ladder represents two different things. The first thing it represents is your goals. If your ladder was short, you set fairly realistic and simple goals. Ones you can probably achieve on your own. If it was long, you set a bunch of long-term and difficult goals. The other thing that it represents is your friendships. If the ladder was close to your cube, then you put a lot of effort into being with your friends. If it was far away, you have a hard time opening up, you have a hard time letting people in. The material it's made out of is how strong the bonds are you form with your friends. So if it's a strong material, you form strong bonds. If it's a weak material, you form weak bonds. So what your ladder looked like determines how you interact with people in general, particularly friends and yourself. The horse, meanwhile, represents, once again, an ideal partner, an ideal significant other. And while I don't entirely agree with how this one plays out, I, again, am not a psychiatrist, so what your horse is doing is the kind of personality you want your partner to have. So if the horse is playing in the field, you want somebody who's playful. If it's just standing around, you want somebody who's loyal. If it's running, you want somebody who will give you your space. The horse's color determines their reliability. So brown, they're super reliable. Black, you want somebody who's dominant and kind of seductive. White, loyalty is what you trust more than anything else. So the color of the horse determines, I guess, the personality trait of the person you're looking for, or another personality trait somebody you're looking for. Okay. The flowers. If there are only a few flowers in your field, you have a small social circle. You have a few friends and relatives that you trust more than anybody else, and otherwise, you'd rather be on your own. If there are a bunch of flowers just all over the place, you have a large social circle. You like being around a lot of people. The color on that one doesn't matter as much, although you could argue that the color of the flowers, again, is the personality traits of the people you'd prefer to have your friends have. The weather condition around your cube on the field itself is your general outlook on life. If it's raining, your outlook on life is that it's kind of sad and depressing. If it's bright and sunny, you have obviously a cheery outlook on life. So whatever the weather is your outlook on life. And then the storm itself is your current amount of stress. So if there is a giant storm coming at you, you are heavily stressed. If there's a small storm out in the distance heading somewhere else, you're not very stressed at all right now. It's not your overall stress. It's just when you wrote down the storm, your current stress at that moment. Okay. The cube test, kind of like the Oasis test, I'm not a huge fan of. It does have its purposes, but it is so random in that it's hard to follow along with it. So instead, clear your head. Got 2 of these left. And I'm not going to actually tell you the name of this next one. Kind of gives away what we're going for. However, it does actually tell a story. Makes it a little bit easier to work with. So, new piece of paper, new thoughts, new everything. Get up, walk around, stretch out, whatever you need to do, so that you are ready and refreshed for one new one. Alright, you are walking to your significant other's house. There are 2 roads that will get you there. One road is a very straight path, gets you to your significant other's house relatively quickly. However, it's kind of boring. There's not much to see on the way. The other path takes longer, but has a bunch of things to see and do while you're on the way. So the question is, which of the 2 roads do you take to get to your significant other's house? Do you take the short but boring road, or the long but interesting one? Okay. Regardless of your choice, on the way to your significant others, you come across a set of rose bushes, and you decide to pick some roses for your significant other before you get to them. One set of rose bushes is white, the other set of rose bushes is red. You decide to pick 20 flowers. What combination of flowers do you pick? Between the red and the white flowers, what combination do you pick to get to 20? And it can be all one color, it doesn't have to be a mix. But to get to 20, what combination do you do? And again, there are red roses and white roses. Once you have your flowers ready, you continue along the path, whichever one you picked, and you make it to your significant other's house. Huzzah! When you knock on the door, their maid answers the door. You have 2 options. You can either have their maid go and let them know you have arrived, or you can go look for your significant other yourself. The maid will let you in and let you go talk to them on your own. Which do you choose? Do you have the maid go talk to them, or do you go look for them yourself? When you get to your significant other's room, they are not there. You decide to leave the flowers for them, and you can either leave them on the bed or on the mantle of the window. Where do you leave your flowers so that your significant other will see them when they get back to their room? Later on, you do spend the entire day with your significant other. You stay the night in a separate room. When you wake up in the morning and go to check on your significant other, are they awake or asleep? And well, yes, some of you will argue you wouldn't be in a separate room. For the purposes of this, you were. So when you go in to check on them, are they awake or asleep? And then finally, your last one, nice and simple. It's time to go home. When you go home, which path do you take? Do you take the long path home or the short path home? What road do you take to get home? Okay, I do like this one. It's relatively quick and easy. 6 either-or questions. So what does it all mean? On your way to your significant other's house, the road represents your attitude towards falling in love. If you took the short path, you fall in love pretty quickly and easily. It does not take you long to decide you love somebody. If you took the long path, it takes you a while to get to know somebody. It takes you a while to decide what your feelings are for them. So the road you took to get to your significant other is how quickly you fall in love. The combination of flowers that you picked, and this one is actually really interesting. The combination of flowers you picked determines how much each person should put into the relationship. The number of red roses you selected is how much you expect to give in a relationship, the amount of effort you put in. The number of white roses you picked determine how much you expect or want your significant other to put into the relationship. So, if you picked 10 red roses and 10 white roses, you want a relationship that's 50-50. If you picked 90% red roses, you expect or want to put more into a relationship than your partner does. And if you put it in more white roses than red, the opposite is true, right? You want them to put more effort into a relationship than you want to put into it. I actually kind of like that one. Now, when it comes to letting your significant other know you have arrived, if you ask the maid to go do it, what this question represents is how you deal with conflict in your relationship. So asking the maid to go find your significant other means that when there's a problem in your relationship, you want other people to get involved to help you out. If you go to find them yourself, it means you like taking care of problems in your relationship and dealing with them head on. So if you ask the maid to go find your significant other, you want other people to help get you out of problems in your relationship. If you want to do it yourself, then it means you prefer to just deal with it, whatever that issue might be. Yeah. Where you leave the roses indicates how often you want to see your significant other in an ideal relationship. If you put them on the bed, you want to see them all the time. If you put them on the mantle, you're fine with having it be a casual relationship. You don't have to see them as often. And again, this doesn't have to be somebody you're currently with. It's just your view of relationships in general. So if you are single, No, no problem with that. This is still how you view your ideal relationship. If you find the next morning that your significant other is asleep, then you are fine with who they are. You like them as is. If you find them awake and waiting for you, you want something about them to change. You want them to be somebody different. And what that change is entirely up to you. But if you find them asleep, you're comfortable with who they are. If you find them awake, you want them to be somebody else. You want them to change. I guess not be somebody else, but adapt their personality to meet your needs. And then the path that you take to get home is a representation of how long you stay in love. So on the path to your significant other was how quickly you fall in love. Your trip home is how long you stay in love. So if you take the short path home, you don't stay in love very long. If you chose the long path, you stay in love a long time, right? That one's a pretty straightforward one. So I do enjoy this one. This one's a good way to view relationships, how you deal with them. It works really well if you do have a current significant other, especially when it comes to whether or not you want them to change, because it can be kind of eye-opening to discover that you actually are not okay with who they are if they're awake when you got to them. Because a lot of people aren't ready to accept that about themselves, that they don't accept their significant other for who they are. While I'm not a relationship expert, often if you want somebody to change for you, you're going to struggle in the long run. Okay, we have one more of these to do to get through this first episode of Mining for Meaning. It is also a short one. It does tell a story. So whatever you need to do to clear your mind, do it one last time, and we will give you one more relational psychology test. Hopefully you're having fun with them. I enjoy these. They're kind of eye-opening. By the way, that last test was called Love Test. I didn't want to give you the name of it to give it away right out the bat. This one, however, is called The Castle. So, imagine, for whatever reason, while out in the wilderness, you come across a castle. What does the front door of the castle look like? Is it a simple door? Is it covered by plants and somewhat hard to find because it's been so overgrown? Is the door huge? Is it made of metal? Is it made of wood? What does the door to this castle look like? Okay. You pass through the door. You're inside the castle. And you realize that there is nobody around. So with nobody around to talk to, what is the first thing you notice? What's the first room you see? So is it a library filled with books? Is it a corridor filled with a bunch of closed doors? First thing you see, a giant fireplace. What is the first thing you see in this castle after you realize that there aren't any people around? Okay, no matter what that first thing was you saw, you come across a staircase. And you decide to climb up the stairs. What does the staircase itself look like? Are the steps super steep and massive and looks like it's not going anywhere? Is it a spiral staircase that's kind of impressive and intimidating? Is it a nice easy path up to the next floor? What do the stairs look like? What's it like climbing them? When you get to the top of the stairs, you come to a window. Yeah, the window is inside of a small room. So there's a small room at the top of the stairs with a window. In that small room, how big is the window? Is it normal size? Is it tiny? Does it take up the entire wall? Get to the top of the stairs, find a room, a small room. Inside the room is a window. How big is the window? You go up to the window and look outside. What do you see? Do you see a forest? Do you see an ocean? Do you see a desert? A city out in the middle of nowhere for whatever reason? Like, when you look out the window of the castle, what do you see? And finally, you go back downstairs, and instead of going out the front door, you find a back door that leads out into a yard. What does the yard look like? Okay. So you've gone to a castle, you found a door, you went inside the castle, you found a room of some kind you picked, you went up some stairs, found a small room with a window, looked outside, went back downstairs and out the back door into a yard. And what you have, the door itself represents your attitude towards new experiences. How do you treat things you've never done before? So, if you imagined a pretty simple, everyday door, you're not really afraid of new challenges. It's nothing new to you. If the door was hidden, then you find challenges difficult, both to overcome or to even find. If the door was huge, obviously you have you find life's obstacles super difficult, super intimidating. When you went inside, the first room you found is the idea you want others to have of you. It's what you want other people to think about you when they meet you or when they've known you for a while. So, if the room you picked was like a library, then you want people to think you're intelligent and studious. If the room you picked, or the first thing you noticed, was a corridor with a bunch of locked doors, you want people to think you're mysterious, that you're closed off a little bit. If it's a kitchen, you want people to think that you're friendly and welcoming. If it's, let's see, what's the other one? A ballroom, you want people to think that you're outgoing and fun. The fireplace, that you will offer people comfort. Whatever the room is that you, or thing is that you saw when you first entered the castle after noticing there were no people, that's how you want people to see you. Does not necessarily mean that's how you are, it's just how you want people to see you. The staircase is the image that you have of life. So this is going back to the valley from the first one, right? Which means you can actually compare them now that you've done both. It's your staircase is your outlook on life. How difficult it is to get up the stairs is how difficult you feel life is. How strenuous. If it's a nice smooth spiral staircase, you find life fairly simple. If it's a jagged, broken staircase, then you find life kind of tough. The window itself is how you feel right now. It's not an interpretation of future events, it's how you feel right now. So if the window itself is small, you're feeling kind of small right now. You kind of feel depressed, you feel trapped. If the window is huge, you feel kind of invincible right now, that you can achieve whatever you want. You're excited about the future. So the size of the window is how you feel right now. The view from the window is the overview of your whole life. If you looked out the window and saw a storm-tossed sea, you think life is hectic as all hell. And it will be forever. If you saw a green valley, then you don't have much stress in your life. If it was a city, then you like socializing with people, and your outlook on life is that you need people to survive. So what you saw outside the window is your outlook on life in general, which again, you can go back and compare to the first one, if you still have that written down. And then the last of these, which is good because my voice is starting to go out. I'm not used to talking this much anymore. Summer. The last one is the courtyard. So the image of the courtyard, what the courtyard looks like out the back of the castle, is how you imagine your future. For better or worse. So if the courtyard was bright and green and well kept, well, then you think your future is going to be bright and green and happy and optimistic and everything. If it was kind of dead, then your outlook in the future is kind of grim. You don't think that the future is going to work out very well for you. And everything in between. If the courtyard was like growing wild, but it doesn't look like it would take much to fix, then your outlook on life is, well, right now it's tough, but it's going to get better. So whatever the courtyard looked like, it's your outlook on life. Okay, so that was, what, 6 relational psychology tests? Sounds right. And there are a whole bunch of them. There's a couple others that I I have found that I didn't enjoy as much as others. Um, for instance, I am not a big fan of the cube or the Oasis test. I like the others simply because telling a full story is easier for me than just these partial little snippets. But the last two, Castle, Love Test, the first two with the camel and uh, the valley, those ones I really enjoy doing. They give you an idea of who you are without being too obtrusive, I guess is the right word. And they're a little bit of fun. So, I hope what you enjoyed this first session of mining for meaning. The next section, the will come out today as well. Will probably be about twice this length. It's going to deal with personality and, more importantly, figuring out who you are as a person um, based on a personality that you pick for yourself. And it will make a little bit more sense when we get to that second session, once I get my voice a little bit back to normal. Um, Either way, I'm hoping to make mining for meaning a continual process as I come up with new topics. If you have any topics of your own that you would like me to cover, by all means, message in the comments, and I will investigate into it. Have a great day.